Okay, today we're going to start and talk about equations of circles. In the past, we've talked about equations of lines like y equals mx plus b um, to show us a line using slope and y-intercept. And now what we're going to learn about is how we can show the equation of a circle so that we would be able to use it to graph a circle. So the general equation, the standard equation, looks like this. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So you might be saying, what's all those letters? What does that mean? Well, h is the first coordinate and k is the second coordinate. That tells us where the center of the circle is. And r, in this case we square it over here, equals the radius of the circle. Now notice the formula is minus h minus k. So what that does is when we're looking for the center coordinates to put it on the graph, we have to take the opposite of h and k that we see in the equation up here. So keeping this in mind, and make sure you have that written in, it's at the top of your page because this is going to be really important. Everything we have to do with circles will depend on the fact whether you know this equation or not, so you must get that memorized. And remember, we square the radius over here. It's not just the radius. We have to square it, multiply it times itself. So let's look at an equation. They're giving us the center and the radius. So here's the center of my circle, and here's my radius. So this is the h, and this is the k. Now remember, our formula is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals our radius, or r squared. So to write this equation, I'm going to insert the 12 and the 80. So I have x minus 12 squared plus y minus 80 squared equals, and my radius is 5, so 5 times 5 is 25. So if I look at this equation, I know it's a circle. I can tell by the format, and I can tell my center is at 1280, okay, which is way up there in quadrant 1, and my circle has a radius of 5. So let's try this one over here. H is going to be 6, and K will be 12, and our radius right there is 9. So we're going to write it as x minus 6 squared, that's a 6, sorry about that, plus y minus 12 squared equals, the radius is 9, and when I square it, I get 81. Somebody always says, well, why is it minus 6 when it says plus? Well, remember, that's the formula. It is a minus sign right here and right here. So I'm just inserting whatever h and k are. Okay, here our center is at -1, 15, and our radius is 12. So now when I insert the -1, I would get x minus -1, okay, which I could just take that out. Minus a negative is the same thing as plus 1. Okay, remember I'm going to take the opposite of that. So I'm going to take x plus 1 squared plus y, opposite of 15, minus 15 squared equals 12 squared, 12 times 12, which is 144. Okay, and on D, our center is at 8, -7. Let's see, 8, -7. That would be quadrant 4. That's where our center is. And our radius is 4. Those are the two parts we need to write the equation of our circle. So we have x minus 8 squared plus y minus negative 7, or y plus 7 squared equals, not 4, but 4 times 4, which is 16. Okay, now we're going to be doing the reverse, about halfway down the page. We're going to be given the equation, and we're going to identify the center and the radius. So here we have a, and remembering my formula, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals the radius squared. Right away I can see, okay, what's the square root of 25? That's right, it's 5. So my radius in this circle is 5. The center is going to be at 624, quadrant 1. Okay, there's my h, there's my k. And remember, the minus is part of my equation. Okay, on B, I can see that my radius is going to be the square root of 49, which is 7. Because remember, this is the radius squared, not the radius. And my center is going to be at the opposite of that minus 9, so it's at 9, and the opposite of the negative 42, or minus 42, is 42. Also quadrant 1. Okay, here we have 1 for our radius squared, and the square root of 1, what number times itself gives you 1? That's right, it's just 1. Okay, so the square root of 1 is 1, because 1 times 1 is 1. And our center is at the opposite of the 8 is the negative 8, and the opposite of the minus 17 is 17. Okay, remember this is a plus because it was a minus 8, and the formula said x minus negative 8. That's what turned it into a plus. Okay, next one. Our radius is not the 64, but it is the square root of 64, which is 8. And our center must be at 10, negative 9. Okay, this is going to the right and down 9. Okay, so let's look at our next group of problems. And now here we're actually going to be doing some graphing, which you know will be very hard for me with this little board that I'm using here. But let's first identify our center and our radius. And then you can go ahead and do the graphing probably yourself. So remember our formula, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals the radius squared. So if this is the radius squared, the square root of 4 is 2. And my center is going to be the opposite of plus 3, so it's minus 3. And the opposite of minus 2, which is positive 2. So I'm going to go ahead and put these points in. Starting here at 0, 0, I'm going to go 3 to the left and 2 up to get negative 3, 2. There's the center. Now my radius is 2, so I'm going to go up 2, to the right 2, down 2, and to the left 2. And then I'm going to make curves. Make a nice little circle there, good as I can. Okay, let's go to our second problem. Our center is going to be at 3, 1. Our radius is the square root of 16, or 4. So first I put my center in, 1, 2, 3, 1. And then I use my radius, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, up from my center, down from my center. Go back to your center, go to the right 4, and go to the left 4. Now see if you can make a nice circle, or as best that you can, connecting those outer points. Now, your work starts now, worksheet 1. We have both sides because you need to get a little practice here. So there's 2 parts to it. You're going to be doing page 4 and page 5. Okay, and I don't think it's on the back. I think you have separate sheets here. So hopefully you'll think it's a little bit of fun once you get going. These first 10 problems are just identifying the center and the radius. I can do that because I know what that equation is. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals my radius squared. Oh, I don't have a perfect square there. Well, that's not going to stop me because I don't have to graph this anyways. So the center is going to be at -12, -6. My radius, which is not 21, but it is the square root of 21. We're going to leave it like that. Okay, we don't need to round these answers. Let's go over here to number 2. The center, thinking of how this looks like my formula, is at 2, -4, and my radius, which is not 121, it is the square root of 121. And remember when we wrote that long list of perfect squares, the square root of 121, if you put that in your calculator, you're going to find out it's the number 11. Okay, let's move down here to number 11, because now we're going to write the equation of the circle. So I wanted to do one of these with you. I'm thinking I got to use my formula, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals the radius squared. Okay, sounds an awful lot like a squared plus b squared equals c squared, if you ask me. Okay, so I'm looking here. Here's the center. I can see the center of my circle. And since this is 1 and that says 6, so I go 1, 2 for my radius. So I know my radius is 2, so my radius squared would be 4 in my equation. And my center, let's write this down first, is at 4. And let's see, am I right on the axis? It looks like I am. So 4 to the right, and I did not go up. So let's put that into our equation now, the equation of the circle. So we've got x minus 4 squared plus y minus 0 squared equals our radius squared, or 2 times 2, which is 4. So if I simplify it, it looks like this. X minus 4 squared plus y minus 0 is y, so I could just write y squared equals 4. Use this as an example to do the next few problems there and get you through numbers 15. I think you'll be able to do 17 through 20 pretty easily on your own. Okay, everybody get to work. Hopefully you've got some time, and this will give you a head start for next week. Have a good weekend.